Welcome to the One Hustle Show. My name is Laurel Mardian, and I have my host with me, Daniel Caldera.
What's going on, everybody? I am very excited to tell you about our guest today. She was somebody we actually met off of Instagram. She is an investor that started with us, got her first property, and now has 5 properties in less than 2 years and has them all in a trust for her children, looking to build generational wealth. So very excited to have Elizabeth Schreiber on today.
Super excited to be here, excited to talk about the process and how wonderful and life-changing the whole thing has been. It's been a really great experience so far.
Yeah, it's crazy how one thing leads to another. And, we actually met on Instagram and, I guess a bunch of real estate agents weren't responding to you. And that's kind of like the norm. But talk about that experience and how we met from your perspective.
Right. I mean, it's pretty funny because I was actually in the same airport today when I got the call from you. I had probably sent the same message to 8 different agents. I think one person messaged me back, and you had called me back like immediately. And it's just so interesting to me, the lack of ambition, the lack of, I don't know, just like drive from people. And I got that sense from you within like 20 seconds of speaking to you that we spoke the same language. And that was, let's figure this out and make money. So we got it. And it's just amazing to me that people don't get out of their own way in all aspects of life.
And that's one of the things I'm looking forward to, educating people that are going through the process or thinking about getting their first investment property, the, challenges that you go through mentally in making your first investment. Some of these people save their entire life to actually take down their first deal. And typically the first one's the hard one. So I really want to unpack that and kind of talk about your first one with us and the emotions you went through and kind of how it's evolved into now that you own 5 properties, you're much more confident. And, we have some exciting things to tell you at the end about, where you've evolved to, but we'll kind of start with the first property and explain, what those emotions look like and what somebody can expect on their first one, and knowing those feelings that they have are normal, right?
Right. Well, I can only give my point of view, and I know I'm like a super high driver like you. I had already made my mind up. I'd spoken with my husband about it, and we had a really long conversation. It was like, why aren't we doing something besides the stock market? And neither of us could really come up with an answer. We're like, well, this is what you're supposed to do. And then we both kind of thought, like, according to who? Who's this supposed to, and why aren't we going to do something else? And I had said to Tom, my husband, I said, I want to touch where the money is. Like, I want to see it. I want to know where it is. That's what makes sense. And he was like, okay. And so as I had started looking, I grew up coming to Vegas. I love Vegas. I was like, this is where it's going to be. This is where it's going to be because of a plethora of reasons. My first one being, it's really quite simple to evict here. I'm from California. It's not the same way there. And it's a low risk investment, right? So in California, things are $800, $900, $1 million. Here, you can buy something that's newer around the $300,000 to $400,000 range. So if it doesn't work out perfectly, it's not going to decimate you, right? So we're like, we're going to start small. Our first investment property we purchased February 24th, 2022. I'll never forget it. We couldn't even believe when we closed on it. We were sitting in the car. DC called me. He's like, okay, it's done. And we're like, ooh, all right,
now
cool. What? Now what? And so, there were a ton of emotions. Putting the offer in, we're like, okay, cool.
We were in a bidding war. That was when we were in bidding wars.
We were in a bidding war.
And I knew the listing agent, he would at a company that I knew of, and I called the person I knew there, and we were able to get the deal done. So that was like the first battle, right?
The first hurdle.
Yeah, it was like, can we even get a house right now?
I mean, you think through each process and you're like, okay, now we're doing the property inspection. And of course you get the property inspection report and you're like, ooh, this doesn't look super great. Why is it 32 pages? And why are we talking about all this stuff? And what if? And what we kept coming back to was, what was our mindset when we started this process? There is an end goal here, and we can't get caught up in the what if. well, yeah, what if? I mean, what if the stock market crashes? You just can't, there's no surefire way to do anything. So you got to lean forward. And when we closed, we're like, hey, we got a lot more steps to go through, and we'll do them. Lean forward.
Can you elaborate on that for me? Like, did you and your husband like sit down and say, this is our goal, and that you both were able to come back and remind yourselves of that? Or was it that you knew that and you had to tell me that? Because I think that's one of the things that I've found when we deal with investors. There's normally one that's more all in than the other one,
right,
reminding the other one. Would you agree with that? Or are you guys both all in and you knew it?
You know, I think at the beginning it was more me being the pusher, but as we got into the transaction, Tom was the one to reel me back in, because I can go from here to here and be on Mars, but he was like, hey, we made this decision of sound mind. We're going to be okay. Like, if it doesn't work out, we'll figure it out. So I think it kind of switched back and forth for us. But as one hurdle was completed, we then had the next hurdle. We had to find a renter. And Tom was like, well, how are you going to find a renter? I was like, I don't know. I guess I'll just put it on Facebook. He's like, you didn't think that through? I'm like, well, no, I just move. I don't know. I'll figure it out. It'll be okay. And he's like, okay, well, let me know how it goes. And so we put it on Facebook. And I feel like the three of us had great dialogue, which made it that much more satisfying, easy, whatever you want to call it. I got a lot of interest from Facebook Marketplace. And I feel like for me, the fear of owning the property was less than the fear of finding somebody to live there. Because you're picking somebody to take care of your investment. And I mean, in my case, I'm picking someone to take care of Ace, Ruby, and Hank's future investment, because that's the whole goal here.
And you don't plan on selling. I want to be very clear. You plan on acquiring properties. The end game goal for you is to have generational wealth and have your kids set up, and all these properties are put into a trust. And, you know, you're playing the long game. You're not like, can we flip the property? You know, however is that going to work out? You know, you're not thinking short term. You're thinking very long term, right?
Absolutely.
And it sounded like you really took the reins on this, and like your husband had the trust in you to go, get it done no matter what. And you had the confidence in us, and we kind of just ran with it. You knew you wanted to get your investment properties. We were guiding you in the right direction, and everybody was moving at the speed of instruction. And I think that's the biggest hurdle we deal with people is they don't move at the speed of instruction. They're very unsure. It's a very scary thing for them. And half the thing, I would say is the spouse is not being on the same page, right? With one spouse wants it more, the other spouse has another idea of, what a good investment is. And I think a lot of people get attached to us and come to us with these certain buy boxes, not even knowing why they're buying it, right? Like, what's the goal? And, some people have these crazy parameters. And how did you decide on what you were going to purchase and what your buy box was? One, and, two, the decision-making process and actually being on the same page as a couple.
Right. Well, honestly, God love him, Tom kind of said, hey, you feel like you're in kind of control of this, and I'm happy for you. You work through what you think is a good product, let's call it. And so for me, I was like, it has to be aesthetically pleasing, because I don't know who would ever want to live somewhere that looked terrible. So I wanted it to be new, modern.
I remember you saying you would want to live there. It would be somewhere you would be okay living.
Yes, and I wanted amenities. I wanted the pool, which I later found out wasn't that important, but I was really hell-bent on the pool. So
something like that.
Hell-bent.
So cool that you learned through the process, you had this idea of what you thought you wanted. It has to have a pool. It has to have the amenities. And later you learned we can still pick up a great deal, and it doesn't have to be what my idea of that buy box is. So
I thought it was so funny.
How did that happen? I don't know the story with the pool with you guys.
She was like, she had it in her head that she would get higher rent if it had amenities, and she was not letting go of that.
No.
At all.
No.
And later, I think she realized, it's not as big of a deal as you thought in your head.
What I've now come to the conclusion of is the HOA price is way more important than what amenities it comes with. Does that make sense? Like if you have a super high HOA, you're always going to have a super high HOA. So my first rental has a decently high HOA. Is that great for ROI? Not really. No, it's not. It's tough. So you carry that.
I mean, full transparency, when Daniel first met Elizabeth, she was not buying the ideal property of
Right.
what he wanted her to buy for an investment from his professional experience, but he just didn't really feel like at that point in our relationship that he had the position or the rapport to tell you, like, you're not buying this. And
But it was smart.
She
you
came
didn't.
to me wanting to buy a property and nobody else would respond to her. I mean, any smart real estate agent's like, if somebody wants to write a contract, you listen. You know, you're there to facilitate the process. If they want something, you're not going to put your projections and ideas. And as experienced as I was in like investments, like I wasn't going to push it. You know, that's what she wanted. I'll navigate
Right.
her through that process. And, you know, that's kind of how it led to, you know, where we are.
2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
But that's where I think that your strength is, Daniel, and listening to your client and not.
You have to put the client first, and then you have to learn your wrong on your own, right?
Sure.
Like I can guide you to a certain point, but some people there's no talking sense into, you know, especially on the first one, you don't have that. They have an idea of what it needs to be, and they need to fulfill that, right? And I think if people could get not so attached to what they think it needs to be and the idea of what the investment is and trust the professional that has experience, make sure they have track record. Like we have a great track record. I can show people and put them on the phone with you and show them you've self-managed your properties,
Right.
you know, to a certain point of being able to operate your properties remotely, take your tenants' applications through a website software and do everything remote. And I think that's
Sure.
really powerful because a lot of people ask me like, you know, property management's a big thing about it. So I want you to talk about property management and what your thoughts are on property management. Should somebody get a property manager? How many could they manage on their own? Like,
So
Before you move on, I just want to say this. Like, I don't want anybody to think that you didn't allowed her to buy a property that wasn't good, because your first property made how much? Like, it 90K. It's increased 90K.
no.
No
Those,
more?
it's about the same.
Oh, really?
It's like 20. We're like 20, above 20. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
But the first property was just the first property. I
Right.
mean, I was hell bent on buying that first. I was going to do it. So if you told me not to, I was going to find somebody else to do it.
100%.
So that would have been a terrible decision on your part.
right.
For me, as the relationship grew, so did my my acceptance of your advice.
I had credibility. After
Sure.
a certain point, I earned credibility through doing work, you know, doing business together. You know, you saw I operated, I performed, you know, we worked well together.
And that first property will always be near and dear to my heart, period. But the second and third, that's a hilarious story. I was Googling D.R. Horton. I was like, what's D.R. Horton? I think Laurel had worked there. I don't know. But I couldn't sleep one night. I started Googling it and reading about Henderson. And I'm like, I'm obsessed with Henderson. Because
Oh,
this is
I
how
remember that.
This is how my brain works. I'm like, I'm buying something there now. This is happening. And I'm like, Tom, I'm buying something in Henderson. He's like, okay. We said one property. We said one. I'm like, yeah, but come on, it's just one more. It's like, come on, let's just do it. So I get on the phone with you and probably you too. And you guys are like, well, we'll go see them. And you said, absolutely green light, let's do it. We go under contract at, I think it was like 360, happy as a clam, going through the motions. And then you call me and you're like, hey, I have some news. We are going to get a massive price reduction. I'm like, great, sign me up for the next one. I want another one. And you were like, really? I'm like, yeah. And you said, how do you think Tom's going to handle that?
I know. I was like, really? We're not even close on. You're like, yeah, I want
Let's
another
go.
one then. Let's do it.
And
yeah,
those ones I
I had
couldn't
gotten
even
some insight that there was going to be a price reduction. And the funny thing about D.R. Horton, they do not go back in their inventory and price reduce.
But that's the value of having someone who knows these systems at play. It's so valuable. I mean, because there's no way I would have bought the third. Why? Like, no. And
I
I
know.
couldn't even keep.
I was like, oh my gosh.
I couldn't even keep them
Most
on.
people hear price drop and they're like, "Oh my God, what? Maybe this isn't the place to invest."
Wrong.
And she heard, "Double me up."
Wrong.
I want another one.
Wrong.
I love that.
Double.
It's just all about the mindset, right? That mindset. What is it? What started all of this? What do you think started like this, like the itch to invest? Like,
Well, I kind
wanted
of
to
like a
set her
little bit of
kids up.
Well, I like a little bit of gambling, a little bit. I mean, I kind of like when things are a little bit. Ooh, what's gonna
so
happen?
there is an element of risk. There is that element of like
in anything, there's an element of risk in the stock market. But for me,
you're able to
I
mitigate
was
that
telling,
risk.
yeah, but I was telling Tom this week in the car, I said, with property, you don't have to be a genius. You're buying a home. You can see it. You can touch it. If you can't explain the stock market to me in 2 sentences or less, I am uninterested because I can never manage that myself.
Yeah.
How in the hell am I going to manage a stock market?
Oh, think
No.
about it. Okay, what is the value of all the properties? Like
Oh.
3 million, you think?
Yeah.
Okay, so how could you manage $3 million of stocks over $3 million of real estate? It's a lot easier, right?
Well, I think owning a home is self-explanatory. Something breaks, you fix it. You find good renters. I mean, and I have to say, kudos to my renters. They are absolutely phenomenal, and I think it has to do with this big city but small town vibes. Like the people here.
No, I think it's you.
You do?
I do.
But I think that the people here are so, I don't know, they're just nice. They're kind, they're caring.
I think that the way you find your tenants and the way you deal with your tenants is what sets you apart.
Well, that's kind.
You're extremely responsive. Most property managers don't respond, for a week at a time, 3 days at a time. Oops, we missed the lead. We'll get at the next one. Somebody's going to rent it. They have that mentality. So that kind of leads back into my question about the property management and self-management. Do you recommend people self-manage, property manage? What's that magic number as far as a threshold?
Well, I can't tell somebody what they
No,
should
for
or
you,
shouldn't do.
like
For
what's
me,
your experience?
For me, I can say that I tried to have a property manager, and the solution was, well, let's just keep lowering the price. And for me, I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't make a lot of sense. Let's be creative. So I think if you can manage these things and you can find a team who's at play, who will show the properties, kind of get like that feeling you get from somebody in person, you can probably manage 10 on your own, really.
And
You
so
really
how
could.
do you manage? What is the process of managing yourself? So we close the property.
Close
Well,
close
then
the
what
property.
happens?
I use Turbo Tenant. I will sing the high heaven praises of Turbo Tenant. It has made my life so easy. So I put the property on Turbo Tenant. It then blasts it to apartments.com, hot pads, the MLS. I think it also goes to the MLS. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But then I also have made really good contacts in Las Vegas. So I put it on the Facebook Marketplace. And then as I get leads, I will forward them to Daniel and Laurel, and they will filter them out. We'll talk through it.
We'll show them. We'll filter out the people that are willing to show up to the appointments.
Sure.
We'll tell you who shows up. Based off if they show up, then we, tell them to apply with you, and we
Right.
facilitate showing the property.
Right. And I will say I prefer and I like people who don't have perfect credit. Listen, no one's perfect, and I am so willing to work with poor credit or whatever the issue is. I found solutions because I like to be solution based. That's how you succeed in leaning forward, is being solution based. So that's just kind of how I've run it.
So I think, that is really what it is. I mean, you take people that most people wouldn't consider.
Right.
And they're grateful for you.
Right.
You're grateful you have a good tenant. So you have great tenant experiences because you're willing to, it opens up the pool for you. And I believe you actually charge us, how do you facilitate helping somebody with the lower, credit, or how do you mitigate that risk for yourself? Do you charge more? Do you take more security deposits?
I'll take a higher deposit, and I will have a conversation with the tenant, and I'll say, hey, this is what we can do. What are you comfortable with? and we will make a plan together. And that's what I've noticed.
So you work with them. There's no one size fits all for you.
Every single one of my
and you
leases
speak to them directly. It's not like, and is it an email? Do you call them? Do
No,
you text them?
I talk to my tenants. I touch base with them, I'd say once a month. Yeah.
But this is the thing that I like to remind investors. If they had perfect credit and if they had all these things, then they're buyers.
Right.
They're renters for a reason.
And some people like renting. I mean, I get it. Like, you call me and I fix your problem.
And the other thing is the most important thing is they pay the rent and they take care of your property.
Right.
Because the goal, I mean, I always explain real estate investments. They're like, you know, think about a 401k. You pay into it every month. Real estate's like a 401k that somebody else pays into every single month for you. And you get the benefits of that by taking on that risk. You sign on the risk, but somebody else like takes on that cost. And you could even have a property manager do it and be completely hands off, but that's less profitable, right?
Sure. You know, the thing too about Vegas is I feel like I have this like amazing secret. I'm like, I got a property in Vegas. Like, people are missing it. My gosh, you drive around here. There's still no paved streets in Henderson. When I bought those 2 and 3, the streets weren't paved. I'm like, people are missing it. There is a secret here that the builders see and the people above ground are seeing that other people are missing. And I'm going to capitalize.
The people with money are investing.
That's
you
right.
see people putting up buildings. You see people investing on the strip. People with that type of capital don't just throw money into deals that they don't see.
Absolutely not.
That they haven't done their market research in. You follow the money.
And also fortune favors the bold.
100%. And, you know, you were very bold in going out and moving at the speed of instruction and the speed of which you had the idea. It seems like you act on ideas very quickly. So what would you say to somebody that just is like, you know, not taking action, has been thinking about doing it, has ran the numbers, but hasn't really pulled the trigger yet? What's your advice to that person?
Well, my advice to that person is talk to somebody knowledgeable. Weigh out what the risks in your brain are versus real risk and see what it is, right?
Because sometimes it's worse in our head than it is in reality.
Of course,
oftentimes.
but you know what? I hate to say it, but real estate investment isn't for everyone.
100%.
So it
some
might not
people
be
want
for you.
quick money. They're like, well, when can I flip it? And is there a bunch of
No.
cash flow? Like the biggest
This
question.
is a long play.
A lot of people come to us wanting cash flow. I'm like, you don't understand the real estate play if you come here for cash flow. If you want cash flow, go like trade, like day trade or play with the money markets or Forex. She says crypto, right? You know, go get a 5% bond that's like guaranteed. That's, you know, something.
And people, to your point, people are very surprised when they're like, well, what's your take home? I'm like, it's just a couple $100 per property. Like, it's nothing.
But they don't get it.
Right. But I say that's not the goal here. The goal here is to make sure that when I'm long gone or when my kids go to college, if they need funds in 15 years, they're available. And that's how we're going to do it.
One of the things that I do remember you saying is like, Laurel, I'm really worried whether or not my kids will be able to afford to buy a home.
Right.
Which really could be the reality in the future.
Right.
So she was like, I'm going to buy one for each of them. I mean, we've surpassed that now, which is awesome.
Right.
But it could be for college. They could keep it. They could continue to rent it. They could sell it and use it for a down payment on a house in the future. Like, it will be great investment for the future.
Well, and I figure if I do my job properly, no one will sell.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Like, you don't buy to sell.
Right.
My father-in-law, who's a very savvy real estate guy, I asked him once, I said, when would you sell? And he said, if you can't rent it. That's it. You would never sell until your goals change.
Wow. You never sell unless you can't rent it. Never heard that. It's great.
Yeah.
When would you ever not be able to rent it, though?
Right. But that's just it.
You know, if you can't rent it, you got a problem. I mean, look at the fires in Hawaii.
Yeah.
If you can't rent it, like our doctor client, right? He has property in Lahaina. I mean, you can't get in or out of there, right?
Right.
His property wasn't necessarily affected, but he can't rent it. Nobody wants to. There's no activity right there.
Right.
So that may be a situation where you liquidate, right? Something where natural disaster.
I mean, doing all of this has lit such a fire in me. I then got
It changed your entire life.
I got my real estate license. How about that for
Yeah.
a twist, right? So I started speaking with clients about what I've done here with Laurel and Daniel, and it's just been like, you can just see people's light going off. Like, wait,
You're like, "That's
how are you doing that? Explain that to me. Will you show me how to do that? And I'm like, yeah, you know what? Why don't I just get my license in Nevada?
And I was like, let's go.
Let's go. So here we are. We have a fully curated process team. I mean, it's like, it couldn't be easier. I did all the hard stuff with you two.
And what is our group chat called?
Oh my God.
What is our group chat called?
Buying Vegas Dream Team.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. I mean, I think each of us bring something to the table
Absolutely.
that's a benefit, you know, and
Having a good team is essential to success. You cannot do it alone, you know, and I think people try to do it alone too much and like run numbers themselves and like use all these websites and calculations and take advice from the internet and all these different things. What advice would you give to somebody that's taking advice from everywhere, and where should somebody get their advice from? One person? Should they do their own research? Because some agents, you know, don't know. They're not experienced in investments. How does somebody navigate that and kind of sniff that out, the BS?
Well, I would say I think you need to look in not a California market, right, for example, because that's such a high risk investment. I would look into a lower risk investment, and I would probably speak to, honestly, one of you two, because you live here. And when you get too many cooks in the kitchen, you're convoluted, you can't think straight, it's not productive. So if you're not to the point where you can speak to somebody with a lot of experience in the matter, you're not ready. Wait.
I like that. Because I think the most frustrating thing for me is when you go to the doctor and the doctor tells you what to do, you don't question them. You hired the doctor to tell you what's wrong with you. And hopefully you follow instructions and do whatever his protocol is, right? So when you come to me and tell me that you want to invest, I have a proven track record over and over of helping people invest. And you specifically, 5 in less than 2 years that have been, we have a proven like system. Like, why are you asking if you're not serious about moving forward? And why do you need to consult anybody else? Like, why? For what reason? Like, believe in your decision, move forward at the speed of instruction, and see how amazing it is on the other side.
Right. I would say if you are not ready to write a contract, when you start looking at things, you're not ready.
Right.
You're not ready. You should be able
to. How do you get ready? How do you know when you're ready?
I mean, it's kind of a hope and a prayer and being knowledgeable of yourself.
I think this. If when they call me and I provide them a property that is available to write a contract on, and they can pull the trigger of wiring the earnest money and signing that contract, that's when you're ready. Like,
right. You better be ready to do those things. You better be ready to go see the property, put your earnest money down, and sign a contract.
It's like when you get the opportunity in front of you, it's not going to stay there forever. You have to jump on it. You have to go grab it.
Things have already gone up since February 24th.
This is, you know, the interesting thing is like when people reach out to us for investment properties and, you know, we give them a deal at a certain price and they come back 7 days later, 8 days later, 2 weeks later, and the price is $30,000 difference. And they're like, what happened? And they didn't move at the speed of instruction. And it's so important, especially when we go to these investment deals, to move at the speed of instruction at which we bring people deals. Because every day, you know, at one of the home builders we operate and bid on, there are 46 sales agents that can bid on the same house. And the house actually doesn't go into contract until somebody puts their credit card and the money is received on their end. So it's like a free-for-all.
Right.
So when you send some of these deals, they're very time sensitive. And some people...
Well, I would say most things are time sensitive. Put yourself on the seller side.
Well, things are changing every day. You know, we went from like 4.25 rates, you know, incentives with the builders where we're getting these special incentive rates to now the special rates like in the 6s, right? And so it's just things change every day. Rates, right? Costs, prices are going up. We're in an inventory shortage, right? In Las Vegas, we still are low inventory. Only a couple months of inventory on the market, which a healthy market, would be 6 months. Yeah, 6+ months is, a healthy buyer's market where you're getting closing costs. It's a more healthy market. And, since there's such limited inventory, things are going very quickly. People don't understand the marketing. Because nationally, you look at national news, everything is subjective to its specific like microeconomy, right?
Sure.
And Vegas is so microeconomy. So I don't care what the national, stats are. You have to look where you're purchasing at, because the national stats are the news or based off of what data they're using, because you can compare something from 2008 till now versus last year over this year and be like, well, last year over this year, they did bad. But if you look at the track record in the past 5 years, 10 years, or previously, depending on how you look at the data, it can be skewed in order to support whatever the message somebody's trying to push. So it's very important you get accurate real-time data of what sales are moving and what the activity and the micro economy is in that area you're purchasing. And that's where having a good agent that understands that knowing that like one neighborhood in Summerlin may be different than a neighborhood, in the Southwest, and the demand difference as far as somebody who's not here wouldn't know the difference of the demand between the two areas. And there's very different, right? That area you put a house up and it may sit a little bit longer. This area you put a house up at the right price, it's gone.
Well, I kept directing you to Boulder Highway. You're like, you can't, that's not an investment property. It's a no. You're like, let's
the reason is because of the rentability. Those microeconomies, right? It's a great product.
You would never know.
It might look great, but when you run the numbers on these properties, you're not going to get the rents that you would on, a different, I think maybe spend $30,000 more and now you're hitting the rental returns you need, as opposed to going $30,000 less. And even though you go lower in price, it doesn't pencil because the rents aren't there. And that's what people have to understand. Our goal for a property to pencil is to at least break even, if not, plus or minus a few $100s.
Breaking even's the goal.
Breaking even is the goal.
Breaking even's the goal. And even if you're underwater a few $100s a month, you're paying yourself.
Like I said, it's a 401k. If you're putting $200 and the other person is putting a $1,800 rest, and
I mean, for the last year, my number 4 rental was $300 in the negative. But I mean, oh well.
But like, I had a guy yesterday tell me like, I don't want to pay 8% interest. And I was like,
nobody does.
Why? It's tax write-off. Like, would you rather, pay a lower interest rate and like bid over? Because that's where we'll be at if interest rates get back to where they were in 2020 and these.
Well, then you're going to be waiving all of your rights.
Well, because we'll be in bidding wars again. We're already in a tight market. So if there's anything increases as far as the situation getting better as far as rates, it's going to be a madhouse out there. That's my point. It's so crazy. So the opportunity is right now, the people that can see that they can snatch up a property without being in a bidding war, despite what the rates are, and, figure out a way, we're still getting deals to pencil. Even at 6.25% interest rate, we're figuring out how to pencil deals, and we're getting it. There's still deals.
But as an investor, you shouldn't be focused on the interest rates. That's the wrong attitude.
What should you be focused on as an investor?
You should be focused on how that property will appreciate. The rentability.
There you go. Appreciation.
You should not be worried. That should be the last thing on your mind as an investor. I understand if you're buying a primary home, if that's a concern for you, sure, that's a different mindset. And you have no control over the interest rates.
I probably will blow your mind. I have a rental property. You don't own one of these ones because it's not in Henderson. No, I'm just kidding. But it's 1,100 square feet and it rents for $2,200 a month. That's amazing.
That really is
rent. So like, because I know and I understand what it's going to take, and even if you're going to be in the negative, because like, if you don't mind sharing, like, how much did it help your taxes?
A lot. Yeah, it does. Each mortgage does. It really does.
Yeah, right.
And if I could change one thing, I would have had a mortgage on every single one of them.
Right. Because the first one, she bought cash. And
I was like, you sure you don't want to financially? No, I'm buying cash. And I was like,
well, but that was to mitigate our risk, because I was still a little concerned, right?
100%.
Like, what if this doesn't rent? Okay, at least then we're not coming out of pocket. I wasn't there yet, right? It took me time. And if I would have had this information and this wealth of knowledge about investing, I would have done it 5 years ago. Are you kidding me?
How many do you think you would have had if you started 5 years ago by now?
15. I mean, I don't.
And what does 15 properties mean? Like, when you get all these properties, what does that mean for you in the end game? Like, if you think about it, about $2,000 rent per property, times 15 properties, what is that? $30,000 a month.
Right.
Once they're all paid off in like cash flow, not including the value of the assets.
Well, I'll tell you.
At the time,
here's a great story. So I went wine tasting in Temecula. We stayed at the most amazing home I've ever been at in my life in Temecula. And I was asking the dad, sir, what do you do? He's like, I'm a real estate investor. I said, really? Where do you invest? He goes, Riverside County, but I'm moving I'm 1031 exchanging my properties to Vegas.
Of course.
I said, why? And he listed off all the things I said. It's easier to evict. There's no income tax. The property taxes are lower. And I was just kind of floored. Like, I had the aha moment, like, wow, maybe I was really onto something here. That is so crazy to me. But I think people are starting to catch on to this microeconomy. So if you want to be here in the ground phase, you need to come to the table, like now. Because these $300,000, this is going to be a thing of the past very soon.
Yeah, what is the price point of the houses that we're purchasing? Tell them some of the deals we've done.
So I would say we're like $325 to $390.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, we just got one. It's $400. It's the builders you're in.
405, 410, 410 listed.
410, 405. We could probably get it for like $360, $370. And we can get an interest rate for an investor like 6% interest rate.
That's incredible.
And
but
what
again,
is market rate?
It's probably
Like,
8.5.
Yeah.
For an investor.
And so what does that mean on somebody's mortgage, dollar amount wise?
Thousands.
Yeah. So it making or breaking
means
it as far as
the rent
covers
would
the mortgage
be more than what the mortgage would be.
by like
as long as
100
you
or
do
200.
25% down.
But again, you got to keep the HOA in mind. That's one thing.
No, we did. We factored all that out.
No, but
Perfect.
with 25% down, they can get like 6-point-something percent interest, and they'll be in the positive a couple hundred from what the rent is.
That's fantastic.
Including the taxes, insurance, HOA. It's great.
And I'm not dogging the stock market. I think that's great. I think, because we still have money in the stock market, but I think diversifying.
You better pull that out and buy real estate.
Well, I think diversifying is where it's at. Because
No.
many people think that this is what you should be doing. But like,
Right.
it's time.
Real estate's not the only vehicle,
Sure, but I'm saying like that with the stock market thing, do something else.
People that have all their eggs in a basket,
Yes,
one
it's
basket.
not the way to go.
The only regret I have is because of being a single mom that I did not take more risk at a younger age. I
Right.
mean, because as you get older, the less risk you want to take. And the thing is like, you're never going to be in like a bad situation, no matter how bad the risk is. You know what I'm saying? Like,
And there's always solutions. Like
Sure.
people,
Solution based.
your ideas of like the worst case scenario, it's never as bad as you think it is.
Sure.
And even when things happen, life happens, and there's people that help you navigate that, and just lean on your team when things happen like that. You don't have to go through it alone. I think so many people think they have to go through it alone. I'm gonna have to find a tenant. Well, you rely on your team.
Yeah.
We can help you self-manage it and like show you how to do it on Facebook, or if you want to get a
But
property.
maybe that's not for you.
And we
Cool.
met somebody this week that doesn't want to do that. They want a property manager. Cool. We factor that in, and the
And
cost
we found
goes
some
up.
awesome property managers.
There are awesome property
Yeah.
managers that we have out here that could do like full service where you can literally
they do the evictions,
video
they do it all.
walkthroughs of property
is
updates,
huge value.
do maintenance inspections, and they'll evict tenants for you and help you find them, rent them, get the photos done, all of that, and it takes the work out of it for you, so you can literally manage properties remote and take your W-2 income, save on taxes, which is an amazing factor of it. You have the appreciation factor of purchasing, and like just building your investment portfolio with your earned income instead of just spending it, right?
Yeah.
There has to be some sacrifice in order for you to get something you've never had. And
Right.
a lot of people aren't willing to sacrifice the, the discomfort in the first stages. And I feel like once they get past the first one, they're like, why didn't I do this sooner?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, that's probably the
Like
number
most
one
of them
thing.
kick
When
themselves
I
once they
finally get
close.
investors to invest, they're like, my only regret, Laurel, is that I didn't listen to you sooner. I wish I would have done this
Right.
sooner.
And I think that as I speak with people, they're like, well, I'm really young to be doing that. It's like, but you're not, though. You're not. There is no right age to invest. There might be a right time for you to invest, but it's not an age thing.
Is there a right time of year to purchase properties, do you think?
Okay, from personal experience, I think trying to rent around the holidays is tougher. It's doable. I've done it, but it's tougher. So I think it's easy to get rentals August, September. So I think if you want to have an easier time getting rentals, purchasing around like April or May could make your situation a little bit better. No. Well, I think it's
Well, but
harder
then we're in selling
around the
season,
holidays.
right? So then you're going to be in.
Well, so there's pluses and minuses to each
So
point.
for renting purposes, and if you're worried about getting it rented fast, to keep that in mind. And
the holidays are hard.
for purchasing matters, you're going to be paying, typically a premium during that time of year, because typically when things slow down the holiday seasons, we're getting more discounts as year ends go, because we typically are purchasing new builds. Like that's our niche. We help people find new build investment properties, right? Because they're easily rented. They're aesthetically pleasing. You have the builder's warranty.
Absolutely.
And who
Huge.
doesn't want a brand new construction home? And not only that, new homes have this like hack, right? Built-in appreciation.
Yeah, right.
320 we started purchasing. What is that community selling for now?
In Clear Sable.
Yeah.
I think they just sold one for 360, and that was we've had it for 1 year.
I know. And that's the beautiful thing, because what they do is they raise the price every...
You were at the builder. Give them some context. Like,
So we do normally every 2 to 3 sales raise it like $1,000 to $2,000. But if you do that every 3 homes in a tract that has 100 homes, you're going to have some great appreciation. So the earlier that you get in, the more appreciation you're going to have. But then you're also going to have like the normal appreciation that isn't built in from the builder that you're going to also be benefiting. Yeah. You're going to benefit from that as well. And then you don't have to think about like, oh my gosh, what if something breaks?
Well, I had that. My first one. Nope. My fourth one. The walls started leaking. And the builder sent somebody out that day, took down all the drywall, fixed, repitched, re-put in air conditioning, like fixed the whole thing at no cost to me.
because why?
Because it was the builder. It was the builder warranty.
Because you got a brand new construction. Had you done that with the older house, that would have been
you're on your own.
That would have been a nightmare. That would have been devastating for an investor, having to come out of pocket 30,000, 15 for a rehab, 5,000, whatever it was for something of that nature, and it's scary.
Well, and you should also have some rainy day funds, because honestly, I also offered to my tenant to go stay at a hotel for a few days. Like, these are things you also have to be cognizant of. You should have a little pillow of money for if something like that happens.
So let me ask you this, because I didn't pay attention, has any of your mortgage payments been due before you rented one of them?
No.
Right. So you had a renter before your first mortgage payment was due
Right.
on every single home.
Right.
There you go. They rent. It works. You have a system. Because I don't pay attention to that. You call me, you're like, hey, here's this person I'm going to put you in contact with. I, set an appointment with them. If they show up, they're punctual, and, I get a good vibe, then I'm like,
We're moving forward.
I
Let's
like
go.
them. I told them to please go ahead and apply.
Yeah.
So now that you're licensed in California, you're licensed in Nevada, newly with DC Realty, we're excited to have you. Talk about how real estate, investing has changed your life, and where do you see your future now because of all the things that unfolded?
Well, I want to help other people do it. I mean, I want to be the bridge that gaps California families to Nevada investors. That's my goal. That's what I'm going to do. That's where I see my future. I see my future making money in real estate to dump it back into real estate. to
I
be
love
honest.
that. Do you have like a number as far as how big you want your portfolio, or do you have any
Oh,
targets?
Guy, are you trying to give Tom a heart attack?
You know, I mean, I gotta ask. That's just my nature. You know, I love.
Okay, so I guess right now I don't have any plans of buying anything else. That doesn't really mean anything, as we all know.
I
However,
don't believe you.
however, long-term goals, I would like to own some land in Nevada and put up a nice apartment complex. That's really what my goal is. I love it here. I think this is the land of opportunity. This is it. We're in the starting stages of what Orange County is, or what was. That's where we are here.
I agree with that.
I see that here. In 10 years,
I agree.
the pricing here is going to be tough. It's going to be tough.
I told him, I was like, we need to buy Jay something.
Yeah.
100%. And
gonna
I
be
think
tough.
it's super inspirational, the fact that you're putting these properties into a trust for your children, and like it's just the generational wealth aspect to it is just so cool.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome.
I mean, my goal is I want them to manage them. I want to teach them how to talk to people, be responsible. This is a big responsibility. And I want them to get that. I want them to feel the feels from a young age, because I want them to then, when they're 18, 19, 20, 21, to go out and be like, okay, I have the tools to, maybe they'll see something I don't see, right? And they'll be like, I have the tools to make this work.
I'll tell you what I learned from my dad. Something, I started helping rent his rentals when I was 12. And I shied away from being a landlord because what I didn't realize is it matters where you buy the properties. Because here I was, like, probably like Hank's age, going into an apartment building that him and my brother owned, seeing like feces in the dishwasher, and that was like imprinted in my brain. But I didn't realize it was like low income housing apartment building that they owned, you know? So like what I realized later in life, when he started buying single families in gated communities and, you know, better areas where the good school zones were, that I didn't see that anymore. So I think that is one of the things that I learned watching investments as I was growing up, is like it's really important that you pick the location of where you're buying your investments so that it attracts people that are less likely to lose their job and more likely to take care of their homes. I'm not going to say that's just like,
Well, I mean, I learned in multifamily, what you're speaking to is actually, it's a fact. We look for a number. It's called the average income in that area. And we look for a higher income in the area, which typically, you know, returns a higher rent. And so what she's talking about is statistically what people look for. You know, I've been underwriting multifamily deals. So we look for, you know, a higher, you know, average income in the area as far as when we're underwriting investments and knowing if it's a good investment or not, you know, over that 100,000 mark, as far as, you know, income is just like, that's ideal. Once you see the lower 30, 50, you know, the rents get lower, and it's just that those are the statistics on it. So area is super key. You know, we know here the certain zip codes that net the highest rental income, and, you know, will give you crazy appreciation values. I know the 89138 zip code was like 30% appreciation year over year. I mean, it was just the aggressive appreciation, especially new construction. I love seeing, we just had an amazing release of lots, 560 something homes got released in Summerlin. And I'm really excited about that parcel because it's right next to Summit Club. The location is like prime. Summit Club is
I drove her past it
a
today.
private community here in Las Vegas where Mark Wahlberg lives. It's an amazing community where the guards are 3-letter agency guards, X 3-letter agency, which means FBI, CIA, all that good stuff. And, you know, the HOAs there are like a couple $100,000 a year. Celine Dion, Tony Robbins, all A-list celebrities live in there. And, you know, this parcel of land's right next to that. And you can pick up a property in Summit Club, you know, a parcel of dirt for $9 million for a piece of dirt. Homes in there, you know, you can get one for about $24 million, I think is the least expensive one that's on the market right now. And, you know, the community, you know, right next to it, this dirt parcel, you can pick up a house for under $1 million. And I see those parcels, if you picking them up around $1 million, just under $1 million, 900, 1115, right? I see those doubling up, especially with
agree.
500 homes being built in Summerlin. If you get in those early phases, I see a lot of people just purchasing them and eventually selling them before they even move into them, because they'll do so well financially, it won't even make sense to move into the house. So
I know somebody personally that made $200,000 in Summerlin and never moved into the home because of the fact that he made that much appreciation.
So you don't need to buy a rental property for it to be an investment property. While you've had a bunch
Sure.
of success with rentals, there's other ways to invest. So, I mean,
But again, Josh Altman, who is an agent from California, is coming to be the face of that Henderson
terra firma. Yeah, terra firma.
I mean, you guys, the proof is in the pudding.
They
People
plan
are
on
coming
building
here.
They plan on building $30+ million homes up there and having,
that's what I'm saying.
11,000, 12, 20,000 square foot homes up there. I
You
mean,
can't miss it. It's going on here.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
happening. So get on board.
There's
It's time.
There's massive wealth coming here.
In droves.
Las Vegas is becoming the sports capital of the world. All the commercial developments. We have a $4 billion, event, basketball events thing going on. There's just so many things that are happening in the commercial side. Vegas is its own microeconomy. I'm super excited for the future of Las Vegas and to see it grow, because I think, like you said, it's going to be more and more like California. A lot of people are bringing tons of money here, investing, not only just investing here, but bringing their families out here and relocating and, realizing how amazing Vegas is. And while Vegas is amazing, it's not as big as California. It's very small. It's a small city. So I'm excited to see what we can do here together.
Oh, it's happening.
Yeah.
Wheels are going.
Yeah.
It's going.
I'm just thankful because we have a good little operation here, and it's taught me a lot, and it's enabled me to help other investors. And I'm so thankful that you got your license, and I'm so thankful that you're part of the team now, because I think that when I put you on the phone with people and they hear your story, it's helped us.
It's
get people across-
inspirational. Your mindset is inspirational. What you've done is amazing. And I think people, you really should be a role model for people. And, you really inspired me with DC Realty to become more of an investment firm, not just a real estate company, but where people come to invest their money into real estate deals. A lot of the first time investors, I remember when I helped first time home buyers and watching that experience of them getting their first home. Now I'm helping
Right.
people get their first investment property. And I think that's such a pillar for, success, is setting up your family, owning real estate and buying real estate correctly with a proper team. And I feel like we have it dialed in, and
We
I'm
figured it
so
out.
excited to share it with more people. Like
1000%.
everybody I call, I get so upset when people don't pull the trigger, because I know that the opportunity that they missed, they may never get another chance to
Sure.
do it again.
Right. We've
Like you said,
we've made something special here. We have all the systems in place.
Are you going to keep all your investment properties and do the apartment building?
Absolutely. I told you I'm not selling.
I love
Not
it.
for sale.
I love it.
I love it. Well, this has been an amazing episode of the One Hustle Show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
It's been great.
absolutely.
Thanks for coming.